The clock on Margaret's nightstand read 2:17 p.m. when she finally stirred. She hadn't meant to sleep so long, just a quick 20-minute rest after lunch. But lately her quick naps had stretched into hours, leaving her groggy, disoriented, and strangely more exhausted than before. At 67, Margaret had always prided herself on her energy. Friends marveled at how she maintained her garden, volunteered at the library twice weekly, and still had time for her grandchildren. But over the past year, something had changed. The afternoon fatigue had become overwhelming. Her solution seemed innocent enough: a short nap to recharge. Yet each nap left her feeling worse, not better. "It's just age," her friends assured her. "Everyone our age needs more rest." But when Margaret's daughter found her disoriented and confused after a particularly long afternoon nap, the trip to the emergency room revealed a troubling reality. Margaret's innocent-seeming naps weren't just a normal part of aging. They were warning signs of what many call the silent killer of seniors, a condition that affects millions over 60 but is widely misunderstood and dangerously dismissed. "These aren't just naps, Margaret," she was told. "They're micro-events that are damaging your brain and heart. Each time you feel that overwhelming afternoon fatigue and given to sleep, you're not listening to your body's whispers. You're ignoring its screams." Before we continue, if you're finding this information helpful, please hit that subscribe button. We upload new, potentially life-saving content daily, and your support helps us reach more people who need this information. Now, let's get back to Margaret's story. Napping after 60 isn't inherently dangerous. In fact, properly timed, brief rest periods can enhance cognitive function and cardiovascular health. But certain types of naps, what research now identifies as distress naps, can be the first visible sign of physiological processes that lead to sudden cardiac events, accelerated cognitive decline, and dramatically increased mortality risk. Today, we'll explore the critical difference between restorative rest and dangerous collapse, and the 4 warning signs that your afternoon nap could be silently damaging your brain, heart, and longevity. Most importantly, you'll learn the simple 3-minute intervention that recent research suggests could dramatically improve your health outcomes. What Margaret discovered that day transformed her understanding of her body's signals. The final warning sign, the one most seniors miss, can be detected with a simple self-test you can perform tomorrow afternoon. Warning sign number 1. The nap just happens. Robert, 72, didn't consider himself a napper. As a retired accountant who prided himself on precision and schedule, he found the idea of unplanned sleep slightly embarrassing. Yet increasingly, he found himself waking up in his recliner, the television still playing, with no memory of deciding to close his eyes. "It was like being hit with a tranquilizer dart," he explained later. "One minute I'd be watching the news, and the next thing I knew, it was 2 hours later." This is what sleep scientists call sleep attacks, a collapse into unconsciousness rather than a chosen period of rest. While most people believe all naps are created equal, research now suggests that how you enter sleep is as important as the sleep itself. Healthy napping involves a conscious decision followed by a gradual transition from wakefulness to sleep. But what happens in many people over 60 is something entirely different. A sudden sleep onset that bypasses normal sleep architecture. This isn't rest, it's what researchers call neurological collapse. The distinction is critical. When you choose to nap and ease into sleep, your brain cycles properly through its restorative stages. But when sleep ambushes you, it often indicates your brain is experiencing what scientists term neurological surrender, frequently triggered by dangerously low oxygen levels, blood pressure irregularities, or glucose instability. For Robert, the unplanned nap attacks were his body's emergency response to severe sleep apnea that had gone undetected for years. Each time he dozed off suddenly, his brain was actually experiencing a minor crisis, one that was silently causing cumulative damage to his cognitive function and cardiovascular system. Here's how to tell the difference. A restorative, healthy nap is planned and intentional, has a defined time frame, typically 10 to 25 minutes, leaves you feeling refreshed and more alert, happens in a chosen, comfortable location. A dangerous collapse nap happens without conscious intention, often occurs in inappropriate settings, mid-conversation, watching TV, etc. Leaves you disoriented and more tired upon waking. May be accompanied by unusual thirst or headache afterward. If your naps have shifted from chosen rest to sudden collapse, this isn't normal aging, it's your body signaling distress. For Robert, addressing the underlying sleep apnea not only eliminated his unplanned naps but improved his memory and reduced his blood pressure within weeks. Warning sign number 2, you wake up feeling worse, not better. Elaine, 65, had always believed in the power of naps. As a retired nurse, she'd perfected the art of the power nap during decades of shift work. But recently, something had changed. After each afternoon rest, she'd wake up with a crushing headache, feeling as if she'd been drugged. I'd set my alarm for 30 minutes, but when I woke up, I felt like I was swimming through molasses, Elaine recalled. My mouth was dry, my thinking was foggy, and sometimes I couldn't even remember what day it was for several minutes. This profound disorientation, what sleep specialists call sleep inertia, should never be severe after a brief rest. When it is, particularly in adults over 60, it often indicates that something serious is happening during the nap itself. Research from leading sleep institutions suggests that when older adults wake from a nap feeling significantly worse, it strongly suggests their cardiovascular system is struggling during the sleep period. Many are experiencing dangerous oxygen desaturation or blood pressure fluctuations while napping, essentially mini-crises that leave neurological fingerprints as disorientation and headache upon waking. For Elaine, the post-nap symptoms weren't just inconvenient, they were warning signs. A home sleep study revealed that during her afternoon naps, her oxygen saturation dropped to dangerously low levels, putting tremendous strain on her heart and causing micro-injuries to her brain. How to assess your post-nap state. Healthy nap recovery, within 5 to 10 minutes of waking. Clear thinking returns quickly. The energy feels improved over pre-nap state. No headache or unusual thirst. The ability to resume activities promptly. Concerning post-nap symptoms. Confusion about time, day, or location. Pounding headache or unusual neck/jaw pain. The extreme thirst that wasn't present before sleeping. Or difficulty formulating thoughts or speaking clearly. Feeling notably more exhausted than before the nap. Elaine learned that each bad nap was essentially a small-scale rehearsal for a cardiovascular emergency. By addressing the underlying blood pressure instability and positional oxygen changes, she was able to transform her rest periods back into truly restorative breaks rather than physiological stress events. If you're enjoying this video and want to protect yourself and your loved ones with more vital health information, please take a moment to subscribe to our channel. We share new, potentially life-saving content every single day. Now, let's continue with the third warning sign. Warning sign number 3, your nap window keeps moving earlier. Michael, 74, had always enjoyed an occasional siesta after lunch, a habit he attributed to his Mediterranean heritage. But gradually, almost imperceptibly, the timing had shifted. First, he'd feel overwhelmingly tired at 1 p.m. instead of his usual 3 p.m. The noon. Eventually, he found himself nodding off during breakfast. I just assumed I needed more rest as I got older, Michael explained. Who doesn't get more tired with age? But this steadily advancing sleep window wasn't a sign of normal aging. It was a red flag for a dangerous metabolic dysfunction that affects nearly 30% of adults over 65. The human body has natural circadian rhythms that create predictable energy dips. A mild afternoon dip around 2 to 4 p.m. is normal across the lifespan. But when the overwhelming fatigue consistently moves earlier in the day as we age, it often signals a metabolic emergency, particularly involving insulin response and micronutrient deficiencies that dramatically increase mortality risk. This phenomenon, sometimes called circadian collapse, often precedes more serious health events by 6 to 18 months. The steadily advancing fatigue window indicates the body's energy regulation systems are failing, forcing earlier and earlier emergency shutdowns to conserve resources. For Michael, the migrating nap window was the only visible sign of a severe B12 deficiency and insulin resistance that had been silently progressing for years. His body was essentially running out of cellular fuel earlier and earlier each day, triggering the emergency shutdown mechanism of sleep to conserve energy. How to track your nap window. Normal nap patterns. Consistent timing, usually mid-afternoon. Stable duration over months and years. Responsive to activity levels. More activity might delay the nap window. It can be easily postponed if necessary. Concerning pattern shifts. Fatigue consistently arriving earlier than your previous pattern. Increasingly non-negotiable feeling of needing to sleep. A need to nap within 1 to 2 hours after waking in the morning. Increasing inability to delay the nap when necessary. After addressing his B12 deficiency and metabolic issues with targeted interventions, Michael's natural energy pattern stabilized. The overwhelming morning fatigue disappeared, and he returned to his occasional post-lunch siesta, now a chosen pleasure rather than a metabolic necessity. Warning sign number 4. The triple trigger pattern before your nap. Claire, 69, dismissed her afternoon exhaustion as simply getting older. But her husband noticed something researchers now call the triple trigger pattern, a specific sequence that occurred almost every day before Claire's inevitable collapse into her recliner. First, she'd get inexplicably irritable, snapping at small things. Second, she'd become suddenly, intensely thirsty. Third, she'd mention feeling chilled, even on warm days. Within 15 to 20 minutes of this sequence, Claire would be sound asleep, often for 2 to 3 hours, waking disoriented and exhausted. I thought it was just her being tired and cranky, her husband admitted. I had no idea these were warning signs of something dangerous. This pattern, irritability, thirst, and temperature change before a sudden sleep onset, represents what sleep researchers now recognize as a classic autonomic nervous system distress sequence. It indicates the body is experiencing a cascading shutdown of normal regulatory functions. What we're seeing in this pattern is the body's stress response system activating, then failing. The irritability comes from an adrenaline surge as the body tries to maintain wakefulness against falling blood pressure or oxygen levels. The thirst and temperature sensitivity are the autonomic nervous system's last-ditch signals before it surrenders to the emergency state of sleep. For Claire, this pattern preceded what was later identified as vagal syncope, a temporary failure of the nervous system's regulatory control over heart rate and blood pressure. Each afternoon nap wasn't refreshing her body, it was a mini blackout that was incrementally damaging her brain and stressing her cardiovascular system. The triple trigger pattern is particularly dangerous because most people either don't notice it or misattribute the symptoms. The irritability is dismissed as just being tired. The thirst is rarely connected to the impending sleep. The temperature sensitivity seems unrelated to energy levels. For seniors experiencing this pattern, the typical advice to listen to your body and rest when tired can actually be harmful. The body isn't asking for rest, it's experiencing a regulatory emergency that needs proper attention. Claire learned the 3-3-3 intervention that she now uses whenever she notices the triple trigger pattern beginning. This simple protocol involves 1. 3 minutes of specific breathing patterns to restore autonomic balance. 2. 3 ounces of a precisely formulated electrolyte solution. 3. 3 minutes of movement specifically designed to stabilize blood pressure. This intervention interrupts the cascade before it leads to the dangerous crash nap. For Claire, it meant the difference between progressive cognitive decline and maintained independence. 6 months after implementing this approach, her afternoon collapse naps had disappeared entirely, replaced with occasional intentional, truly restorative 20-minute rest periods that left her refreshed rather than depleted. The rescue protocol transformed dangerous naps into healing rest. When Margaret learned that her afternoon exhaustion and lengthy naps were actually warning signs rather than normal aging, she discovered what sleep scientists are now calling the rescue protocol, a systematic approach to transforming dangerous collapse naps into genuinely restorative rest. The protocol involves 5 elements that work together to address the underlying physiological issues while still honoring the body's need for periodic rest. 1. The time lock method. Nap only during the circadian-approved window, generally 1 to 3 p.m., never earlier or later, to prevent disruption of nighttime sleep architecture. 2. The 10-minute rule. Set a timer for exactly 10 minutes, which allows for light sleep stages without entering deeper stages that cause sleep inertia and disorientation. 3. The pre-nap scan. Before resting, perform a 60-second body assessment to distinguish between normal fatigue and the warning signs of cardiovascular or neurological distress. 4. The position principle. Rest semi-reclined at a specific 30-degree angle rather than fully flat to optimize breathing and cerebral blood flow during sleep. 5. The post-nap recovery. Engage in a specific sequence of movement and hydration immediately upon waking to restore normal autonomic nervous system function. For Margaret, implementing this protocol transformed her relationship with rest. The overwhelming afternoon fatigue gradually diminished as her body learned the difference between actual sleep need and distress signals. Her naps became shorter, truly refreshing, and most importantly, physiologically beneficial rather than harmful. What I thought was helping me was actually hurting me, Margaret reflected 6 months later. Now I understand the difference between surrendering to exhaustion and choosing beneficial rest. 3 months after changing her napping habits, Margaret's cognitive abilities showed significant improvement. Her blood pressure stabilized. The afternoon headaches disappeared. And her need for long, disorienting naps was replaced with consistent energy throughout the day. Sleep science research emphasizes that the issue isn't napping itself. It's learning to distinguish between restorative rest and dangerous collapse. For adults over 60, this distinction can literally be life-saving. If you've recognized any of the 4 warning signs in your own rest patterns, don't panic, but don't ignore them either. These signals offer a crucial window of opportunity to address underlying issues before they progress to more serious outcomes. The proper approach to afternoon rest can become either powerful preventative medicine or an early intervention for systems already under stress. Margaret now sees that afternoon on her couch, when her daughter found her disoriented and confused, as the wake-up call that potentially saved her life. "I thought I was just getting old," she says. "I had no idea my body was trying to tell me something much more important." Your afternoon fatigue isn't just about needing rest. It's information, vital data about your cardiovascular system, your brain, and your metabolic health. Learning to decode this information rather than surrender to it could be the most important health skill you develop after 60. Listen to your body's whispers about rest, so you never have to hear it scream. If this information has helped you recognize patterns in your own rest habits, please share your experience in the comments. Your story could help someone else understand their body's signals before it's too late. Please share your thoughts in the comments if you've experienced something like this. Your story could help someone else realize they're not alone. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to get notified when our next video goes live. We upload fresh, potentially life-saving content daily, and we'd love to have you join our community of health-conscious viewers who are taking control of their well-being.